talk about some important words that we've been discussing this year and last year. So first, let's talk about a word that stands for our x values. One word is inputs. So the opposite of that for our y values would be outputs. Let's go back to x values again. One thing that we've talked about is we've called it an independent variable. So the y value would be the opposite of that, which is dependent variable. So now let's come up with another word for x values. This is a new word for us this year. It is called the domain. The domain is the set of all possible inputs. So we know that x values was input and it is the set. Remember that the set symbols right there, it tells us it's going to be multiple numbers. Usually, it's not always multiple, but it's going to be numbers that are in those little brackets there. So let's go back to y values. What do you think y values would be? Well, it's called the range. And the range is the set of all possible y values, or outputs, which is y values. So let's look at what this is going to look like for us. On a mapping, when we had mapping, we listed in this first oval, we listed our x values. So the set of all possible x values, and the nice thing about mappings is we took out any repeats and we put them in numerical order. With domain and range, you have to use etiquette. Etiquette is always going from least to greatest. So I'm going to start with my little brackets, and I'm not very good at drawing them, just deal with it. It's going to be -3, -1, 0, and 2. And then I'm going to close it off with the bracket of my writing, because I can't write them. Okay, so there is my set of possible x values. My set of possible y values would be 5 and 9. So I'm going to try, oh, that one was a good one, 5 and 9. And there we go. And it's the only thing that I have in there. Okay, another one. This one's got names in it. Now, domain, we always go from least to greatest. So when we're doing with words, we would do it in alphabetical order. So I'm probably going to have a hard time writing all these, but alphabetical order is going to be, let's see, it would be Bo first, then Bentley, then, so let's see, this is 1, 2, I would go to Billy, and then I've got Bob, and then I've got Brady and Braxton. Now, I'm going to flip forward because I think I wrote these down. No, I didn't. Okay, so here we go. Bo, and Bentley. Next was Billy, and I think I wrote the same number twice. And then Bob. So it was Brady before Braxton. So this one's actually 6. So then Bradley, sorry, not Brady. Bradley and Braxton would be last. Okay, and then I'm going to go over to my range. I'm going to put it in alphabetical order once again. And so it would be A, B, C, D, and our least favorite grade would be F. So who's our F kid? Bradley. You can never trust a kid named Bradley, right? Okay, domain. This time we're looking at a table. A table doesn't take out the extras. We have to take them out. So we're going to, once again, do our domain. So our lowest number right here is our 0. Then we're going to go to the 2. Now, there are 2 of them. I'm only going to write one of them. Next, I'm going to put 4, and then I'm going to put the 6. So they are in numerical order from least to greatest. Now, I'll go to my y values. Okay, so my lowest y value is 10. Hey, there's 2 of them. I'm only going to write it once. Then I'm going to write 20, then 40, and then 90. Next example, this time I do have words. When you have words, you are going to do alphabetical order. So if I'm going to do this in alphabetical order, I'm going to start with apples. And then I'm going to go to bananas. Oh, I can spell. It's a good thing it's written there. And then I have, let's see, lemons. I'm going to go down here because I'm going to run out of room. Then limes. And finally, oranges. Okay, and there's the end of my set notation. Now when I look at my range, This one has a decimal, but guess what? Decimals are okay. They're still valid numbers. So I have 50 cents, which is my lowest. My next is $1. Then I have $2, and there are two $4, but hopefully by now we're understanding that we only write one of them. We don't want to do repeats. Okay, next up, set of ordered pairs. None of it is in order for me, so I have to put it in order. So first I'm going to be looking at my x values because my domain is my x. My lowest x value, it looks like, I'm going to change colors here. Just crazy. My lowest x value is -4. Then I have -3. Then is -2. I don't have a -2. Sorry about that. Good thing I have an eraser. I have -1. Then I have 0. And finally I have 2. Okay, I hope I did that. Let's see, -4, -3. Sometimes you may need to cross them out because I don't know about you, but I get confused on whether I used it or not. Oh, good, I did use them all. Okay, so now I'm going to do my range, and my lowest number, it looks like, is a -1. Then my next lowest is a 2, and there are 2 of them. I'm only going to write it once. Next, I have a 3, and finally, I have a 7. Okay, so set of ordered pairs, not bad. To me, they're a little bit more challenging just putting them in order, so that's why you should cross them out. Okay, domain, another table, or a set of ordered pairs, sorry, is, let's see, -3 is my smallest. There are 2 of them. I would only write one of them. And then I'm going to have 0, 1, and 4. Okay, finish off my little bracket there. Then I'm going to go to my range. And my lowest number on the range is -5. Then I have -1. Then I have 3. And again, I have a repeat with my 9s. I only write it once. Okay, my favorite is the graphs. My favorite, it is because, I don't know, I think they're kind of fun, but tennis balls. Imagine a tennis ball if you dropped it in the water. What happens when you drop a tennis ball in the water? Hopefully you're saying, oh, well, it's going to float. Okay, so we're going to imagine that we have all of these ordered pairs here are a tennis ball. So we're going to change them now. Every one of them is a tennis ball. And domain, I just like to think of it as a tennis ball. Okay, now the x-axis is my surface of the water. So right here, I have a tennis ball, and it is basically, it's pulled down under the water. So what happens if you pull a tennis ball underwater? Well, it sucks itself back up, and it floats on the water. This one is above the water, and when I drop it, oops, it's just going to float right there on the water. This one, I drop it down, it floats on the water. I drop this one down, it floats on the water. This one, I'm pulling it, and I let go, and it floats on the water. So how do I get my domain? How does that help me? Well, now I've got basically, I can just go along my thing. I always start from left to right, and then this is 0. Let's see, this is 1. This is, or -1. This is -2, so this one is -3. So this one is at x equals 2, and this one is at x equals 4. So the reason I'm getting these numbers is because this would be 0, and then we have 1, -2, -3. That's where I'm getting the numbers, just right off the graph. So now I can just go along and put them in order from left to right. -3, -1, 0, 2, and 4. There is my domain. Well, I have my tennis ball. Clearly, I'm going to have something for my range, and this one is going to be my bird. I call it a bird's flat. So what does a bird's flat look like? Well, basically, birds kind of fly into windows when they don't see them. So this bird flew into the window, and when they do, they leave a mark. Okay, so where is our window? It is the y-axis. Now, I know that windows are not blue, but I want you to see it. So there's my y-axis. So let's bring our birds over. This is a bird. He's going to be flying. Have you ever seen an angry bird fly? Probably. Okay, so let's bring all of these over here. So now we're going to let our angry birds go. They're going to fly straight towards the window, and when they do, they're going to splat, and then they stay there and leave a mark. Splat, splat. Ooh, that one landed on top of it. Splat. Okay, so they all splatted. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down my values of my y. Okay, this is 0, remember? So let's count up first, just so you can kind of have an idea. Make sure you know how to count. This would be 0, this would be 1, this would be 2, this would be 3, this would be 0, this would be -1, this would be -2. Now, when we write our range, we go from least to greatest, because remember, when we do all of this stuff, we're always putting the numbers in order from least to greatest. So, -2, 1, and 3. Now, the cool thing about this is, I don't know if you remember, but some of these landed on top of each other. That took care of our duplicate numbers. Okay, these two landed on top of each other. Once again, they were duplicate numbers. I would have had 2 3s, but I only wrote one of them. Okay, we're going to do one more domain and range, and I thought I copied it, my tennis ball and my bird splat. I didn't, so here we go. We'll make these a tennis ball real quick, and we'll let them drop down. Okay, that drops down there. This one goes here. That's good times, but I can make this work. I am smarter than a computer about 30% of the time. Okay, so I got all of my tennis balls where they need to be. So now I'm just going to go from left to right. I'm going to start over here. This is 1, 2, -3. This one would be -1. Then over here, this is at x equals 2. Okay, now that we've done our tennis ball, we're going to do our bird splat. Hopefully I don't do these too fast so that they will separate. Okay, bird's gonna go, bird comes over, watch them all splat into that building. So now I start at the bottom, down here. This is -1, 2, 3. So from left to right, it's -3. This one is -1. This one is 0. Then we have 2, and then finally we have 4. That was in order from least to greatest. Okay, I'm going to pause the video now, and I'll come back in just a minute. I want you to look at it and see if you can think about anything that would work with this. Hopefully you've had a minute to look at it and say, oh, well, I know that domain are my x values. So if I were looking at an equation, that means that, hey, x is equal to -2. I could substitute that in. So I could write y equals 2 times -2 minus 1. So 2 times -2 is -4 minus 1 is going to be -5. So one of my values on the range is going to be -5. But there's more than one. So now let's look here. Now my x is going to be 0. I'm just going to do a little erasing because guess what? I can. So now I'm going to plug in 0 right there. So 2 times my new x value of 0 minus 1 is going to give me -1. So my next range value, my y value, is going to be -1. Next, I'm going to plug in 2 for x. Okay, so when I plug in my 2 for x, 2 times 2 minus 1, let's see, that's 4 minus 1, so that would be 3. Now, I am doing this in my head. You are more than welcome to use a calculator or whatever you need to make that happen. And then we're going to do the last one, which would be x is 4. So let me erase these. I'm going to plug a 4 in. 2 times 4 is 8 minus 1 would be 7. Now I need to check this. Are they in order from least to greatest? Yes, they are. So I can put my set symbols, and that is my answer. Now the opposite also works. What if I gave you the range? I still got the same equation, but I gave you the range. So what did I give you this time? I gave you the y value. So now I would plug it right here. -5 equals 2x minus 1. This one will take a little bit more work because I've got to solve it. So let's do it. Plus the 1. So that's -4 equals 2x divided by 2. And that means that x equals -2. So one of my values up here is going to be -2. Let's go ahead and do a little erasing here because it's going to change for my next one. My next y value is negative 3. Okay. Do the same thing. Plus the 1. Negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2 is equal to 2x. I divide by 2, and I get negative 1 is equal to x. Okay, now I'm going to follow that up with my next y value, which is negative 1. So let's get up here, and we're going to plug negative 1 in for y. So I'm going to add my 1, add 0 is equal to 2x. Divide by 2, school's over. X equals 0. Okay, so I have a 0, and then I'm going to do my final one, which is 7. So let me do a little more erasing here. Okay, so I've got my 7 in for my y. I'm going to add 1, that equals 8, equals 2x divided by my 2. That is 4 is equal to my x. Now the last thing I need to do is check, are they in order from least to greatest? They are. So I can put my brackets around it and call it good. I hope this helped you when you are trying to find your domains and ranges. Good luck on your assignment.